Call to order the regular board meeting of May 25th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee Demink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg. Here. Clerk Barry is here.
All members are present. Item 4, the public notice. Item 5, there are no presentations tonight. Item 6, department report. Treasurer Elliott.
This past weekend, we had a successful community cleanup event. Trash was picked up along 23 Mile, 26 Mile, Gratiot, I-94, Altman Road, and Brandenburg Park. We are truly humbled and appreciative for the many volunteers who gave of their time. We would like to offer our sincere gratitude for the donations from these valuable community partners: Love-A-Burger, Home Depot, PETA Peddler, GFL, Lowe's, and Farmers Insurance. We encourage and support cleanup days throughout the year by various volunteers, and we look forward to hosting many more in the future. If your organization would like to host a community cleanup day, contact Administrative Services at 586-949-0400, extension 8, and then 2. The updated letter regarding the sidewalks should be arriving in the mail later this week. Email questions to sidewalks@chesterfieldtwp.org. Brandenburg Park will be opening this coming Friday. Stop by the Treasurer's office to purchase your season parking pass Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Cash or credit card are now accepted at the park entrance as well.
Trustee Demink.
Same thing from Leisure Services. Treasurer Elliott just said a few things. Also, with regards to Brandenburg, be prepared for a season of fun. Resurface sports courts, including pickleball, a newly softened shoreline that increases the fish habitat, and a nautical-themed splash pad will await your arrival. Next, registration for summer baseball is taking place now through May 31st. Summer season begins the first week of July. Get your gear ready. Call Leisure Services Department, 949-0400, extension 4 for more details. Registration accepted in person or online. Both girls and boys leagues are available for ages 5 to 15. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick updates. Wanted to make the board aware that the library board met. Nothing real earth-shattering coming out of the library board this month, with the exception of a very interesting discussion about a patron who had objected to some materials at the library, and it was interesting to hear the board talk about how they handle. We don't ban books here in Chesterfield, and the way that the library board proceeds with complaints regarding content, and it was nice to hear that there's a very comprehensive system in place to review that. The other very, I guess, heartwarming story that came was the library board members paying tribute to Mr. Merle Davies, who was a fixture in this community and spent a lot of time at the library. I don't feel it's a reveal of anything private. It was stated publicly that he left a very nice donation to the library. He was a very dedicated resident and patron, and believed very strongly in the library, and upon his passing left a sizable portion of his estate to the library, and again, an area where Trustee Vosberg and I have complete agreement is just in interpersonal relationships, and it was very nice to hear your willingness to help Mr. Davies with the library and managing his estate. And one of the very nice things that came out of this tribute from Ms. Madsen was he was known to frequent the library on a daily basis, primarily because he just loved being around people, and Chesterfield people in particular. So it was just another reminder of what a great community we have, and it was a very, very touching tribute. The other area regarding a committee I serve on is the sustainability and the Selfridge Air National Guard-based sustainability study. Meeting scheduled for actually this month has been postponed, I guess, continued until June 16th. So there are no updates regarding the sustainability study. I will, of course, advise the board and the public upon the June 16th meeting. Thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. Upcoming activity with the Chesterfield Township Historical Society, June 5th, Saturday, between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and Sunday, correct? Sunday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. St. Clair Voyagers and History Alive. Come see the St. Clair Voyagers, a 1750 era French fur trade reenactors and History Alive, a timeline of historical reenactors. Historians in period clothing, encampments, and displays will tell the story of Macomb County's history from its early days of the fur trade through the War on Global Terror. A donation of $1 per person or $2 per family is suggested. Food and drinks will be available for purchase. Thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Those who are anticipating an absentee ballot for the upcoming Senate special election, primary election in August, those ballots are going, those applications for ballots are going to be prepared and mailed out in the next week to 10 days for those individuals who are on the permanent absentee voter list. We do expect those ballots to be available by the middle of June, and you will receive your ballot if we receive a completed absentee ballot application from you. If we do not receive a completed application for an absentee ballot, we cannot mail your ballot. So it is very important for those who are anticipating voting by absentee ballot in the August primary for the special Senate seat election that you do return that application to us. In the event that you would like an application and you are not on the current permanent absentee voter list, you may request that application through the clerk's office. You may email us, you may also call the office, and you may come into the office as well, and we can handle that for you. The committee that I serve on and have chaired for the last couple of years, the Chesterfield Cannabis Committee, had our first meeting of the new members of the new committee. We had two new members, being Trustee Vosberg and Trustee DeMink, and we held our first meeting yesterday with that new committee, and we did receive briefings from our legal counsel as well as our planning consultant, and we will be scheduling another cannabis committee meeting in the near future. Please check our website for updates on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any department heads wish to update the board and the public? Mr. Johnson.
Yes, good evening, board. I just wanted to make everybody aware that based on from our budget discussions back in November/December, we talked about doing a water rate study this year. We did put that out to bid last week, and the anticipation is it's going to be on June 1st. We're going to have that come out with the bids, the bid openings on June 1st. The expectation is probably either the second meeting in June or the first meeting in July will award the vendor to do that study. I just wanted to make the board aware. I know it's a touchy subject because we've done a few of these now. There's two main focuses of this study. The first and most important part of it is making sure that we get our methodology down onto the appropriation of funds, where they're going, how they're being spent, making sure the money is being spent the right way. And obviously the second portion is making sure our water rates are in line with how we intend to develop our township and our system as a whole. So I just wanted to give the board a heads up, and I'll be doing a short presentation that day on it, giving you a breakdown of what that study is going to encompass and what it's going to be about. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that probably the second meeting in June or first meeting in July, we'll be awarding that to one of the vendors for the study. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further department reports? Director Sonnenberg.
Good evening. I just wanted to take a second and get a couple updates regarding Brandenburg and some other projects we're working on. First, Brandenburg, we are excited for everyone to get out and take a look at all the progress we've gotten done. The shoreline project is coming along as planned. We're putting the plantings in along the cove area. The only thing that I just wanted to let people know is obviously we apologize for the seed mats and some of the restoration work that'll be ongoing until fall. You know, grass only grows so fast, so just be patient with us. The work that we're doing is mostly, we consider it foundational. We're gonna build on it for years to come. The courts are going really well. They probably won't be open until the middle of next week. The contractor's working 12 hours a day. I stopped by and seen him on the way here, and he's really making a hard push to get everything done. It's just, they ran into some problems laying out the fence posts, but we're right back on track. So we're making a lot of progress. We look forward to everyone taking a look at it. Also at Brandenburg, you'll notice when you're driving along Jefferson, I would like to give a thanks to Mark and Lisa Workins from Mortgage One, who reached out to us about a year ago and asked if there was something they could do at the parks. Well, after Mike Mullen in our office did a flagpole assessment with Rocket of all of our flagpoles and took stock, he was out at Brandenburg, and they came out with the idea to put in a new pole. So if you drive down Jefferson, you can't miss it. There's an 80-foot pole with a 40 by 26-foot flag. It's absolutely beautiful. We put it on the island, so when you're driving down to the boat launch, it smacks you right in the face, and it's fantastic. So I would like everyone to go out and see it, take a look at it. It's something we're really proud of. Also, we're working with, in the main building, if you do go to Brandenburg, you'll see we still got a little bit of work to do on the inside. There's some things we didn't do because of the cost of materials like lumber. We kind of scaled down our guard shack plan, and we're just going to reskin it for now, just because of the cost involved with lumber. Same thing with pier. We did some minor repairs, but just with lumber cost, it just makes sense for us to wait that out a little bit. But we did, in the main building, we're excited. We're working with Home Depot right now. They're going to give us a real generous donation. We're going to put all new vinyl plank flooring in there, so that's exciting. And also, moving over to the Salt River Nature Center, we have, on that path, if anybody that walked that path, we did a really good job with DTE and some other partners widening that path going along the Salt River. It's beautiful. The only concern we had over time is lighting. Well, Stephanie Yenna in our office reached out to DTE, has been working with DTE, and they're actually been fantastic. We're looking right now, the initial numbers are about $2,300. They're going to give us some credits, but we're going to spend about $2,300. We're going to put 7 new lights along that pathway. So we'll be talking about that more in the future. But what'll be nice is when you walk that path at night, it'll be nice and lit and safe. So right now, we're just working with some of the homeowners to make sure they're on board with our project and some of the things we're doing. So our team's working really hard this time of the year. We apologize about if we're hitting and missing in some areas, but we got all the boots on the ground doing all we can to move us forward. So we appreciate everyone's patience. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further department reports? Item number 7 is the consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda items are permitted. 7A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 11th, 2021, and the special board meeting of May 17th, 2021. 7B, approval of the agenda with addendum if necessary. 7C, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by trustee Demink, support by trustee Vosberg. Discussion. Comments from the public.
My name's John Speaka. I reside at 53978 Connor Drive. Just a couple questions regarding the approval of the consent agenda under the payment of bills. First question is, I noticed under the Treasury's department there was a $60 charge that was submitted for reimbursement for going to the chamber. And then regarding under maintenance, I noticed that we've got a lot of costs as far as our fleets being subcontracted out to either Bell Tire, another place is, Russ Milne. So I'm under the impression that we have a fleet manager in the house, so I was just wondering why a lot of these repairs aren't being done in-house versus being sent out and subcontracted out. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Comments from the board? Motion by trustee Demink, support by trustee Vosberg to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor. I know board comments don't usually happen during consent, but I was wondering if there was anybody on the board prepared to answer the speaker's question, or are we just going to pretend it didn't happen?
I asked if there were any public comments. I did not see any, or any board comments, so you're more than welcome. If
Well,
you'd like to make a
Yeah,
board
I'm not in
comment.
a position to, I just wanted to acknowledge, I guess, then, I'm not in a position to answer those questions. I don't do fleet management, and I don't handle the treasurer's office, but I didn't want to just flat out ignore that question, so.
Any further board comment? Motion by trustee Domingue, support by trustee Vosberg to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8 is the regular agenda, 8A.
8A is to adopt a proclamation to declare June 2021 as Safety Awareness Month in Chesterfield Township.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as stated.
Support.
She beat you a little bit. Beat you to the plate. Discussion. Clerk Berry, would you read the, do you have it to read into the record?
Charter Township of Chesterfield Proclamation, June 2021, Safety Awareness Month. Whereas the township is committed to serving and protecting our communities, families, individuals, and visitors by ensuring our township is one of the safest and healthiest places to live and work. And whereas National Safety Month focuses on reducing the leading causes of injury and death at work, on the road, and in our homes and public spaces. And whereas many workplace accidents and injuries can be prevented by employees who are engaged, alert, and informed on the best practices for identifying and eliminating potential hazards in the workplace. And whereas unsafe work practices can have consequences for both businesses and employees, including personal injury, lost time from work, increased medical costs, and workers' compensation claims. And whereas all employees are essential to ensuring that the township is a safe and great place to work, to live, and to visit. And whereas the township encourages all municipal employees to commit to safety and to work together to eliminate hazards and prevent injuries. Now therefore, the Charter Township of Chesterfield Board of Trustees does hereby proclaim June 2021 as Safety Awareness Month in Chesterfield Township and commend its observance to all residents.
Thank you. One quick comment from me. This time of year, I think it's very important that every community takes a step back and looks at the dangers around us. This can be motorcycles on the roads that you start seeing, road workers, our DPW workers, road commission folks, and construction workers, first responders, confined spaces, and other workplace type injuries. Now you start seeing people on ladders and cutting trees down. Boat safety, water safety, pool safety, trench safety. I think it's important that we as a community reflect and try to promote a culture of safety, not only amongst ourselves, but amongst our residents. So I thank you, and I would urge the board's consideration now and into the future to keep this on the front burner. Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public? Motion by Clerk Berry, support by Treasurer Elliott to approve item 8A as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. The proclamation is adopted. Item 8B.
Item 8B is to approve a request from Freebies Fireworks Inc. for a fireworks vending application variance for a 20 by 80 tent at 33157 23 Mile Road, Chesterfield, Michigan 48047 for the sale of fireworks from June 25th, 2021 through July 4th, 2021. Business operating hours requested are 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion by trustee Vosberg, Support by Supervisor Acciavatti. I would like to clarify one thing. The other applicants that we approved had a 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Time, and we did keep those uniform, and the dates are very similar. If the motion maker would like to continue of us keeping these uniform, the closing time would be 9 instead of 10. Yeah, continued support by myself. Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public? Hold on one second. We're going to take this public comment, and then you're going to go up to the podium. Thank you.
John Spica. I reside at 53978 Connor Drive. Under this proposal, I'd like to see the time cutoff at 9 p.m. It's one of the few areas where actually the supervisor and I actually agree. I'm not a fan of fireworks. It drives my dogs crazy, and it's just not my dogs. There's plenty of dogs in the township, and I think it's a hazard. So if we could cut that time back to 9 o'clock, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Yeah, Tom Tracy, Freebies Fireworks.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Thomas L. Tracy, 1919 Wells Street, Fort Wayne, Indiana, 46808.
Go ahead.
Okay. My only question was, when we put in for the permit, it actually is a 20 by 40 tent. I'd love to have the 20 by 80 tent, but you guys changed that law a few years ago. Now, if you'll pass the 20 by 80, it'd be great, but I understand that everybody has to be equal on the sales.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any comments from the board? Treasurer Elliott.
So the other two that we passed had a 20 by 40 tent was one, and the other one was a 30 by 40 tent. And this request is a 20 by 80.
Motion maker, I recommend we change the 20 by 40 in the item to 20 by 80 in the item to 20 by 40. These do get reviewed by building department and by our fire department, and the plan that was submitted is what can be put up. And if that was a 20 by 40, this number should be 20 by 40.
Yeah, I'll take that as a
Continued
friendly.
support. Any
Yep.
further discussion from the board? Motion by trustee Vosberg, support by Supervisor Acciavatti to approve item 8B as amended, which changes the tent size to 20 foot by 40 foot and changes the business operating hours from 10 a.m. till 9 p.m. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8C.
Item 8C is to approve a request to adopt resolution number 2021-13, purchase additional credited service for Michelle Vandenboom, and authorize the supervisor to execute necessary documents.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as stated.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Berry, support by Trustee Joseph to approve item 8C. Discussion from the board. Comments from Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. I have a question regarding the payment for the actuarial study. Who is it that actually pays for that study? The applicant or union or the township?
Director Duchesne.
The MERS plan anticipates some administrative costs that are part of our costs that involve this. The cost, if you would, actuarial is actually in-house done through their service. So I found out, especially today, that it's really a baked-in cost in their process of administration for each of these estimates, and as they do that, so you're not, neither the applicant nor the township are directly paying for this each time. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so that's, MERS just undertakes that study as part of their
As part of our
business.
contract with MERS, they do that when the applicant makes that request, yes.
All right, thank you. And the reason I support this, but the reason I was asking is, when I was on the county, it was very clear who paid for that, and other municipalities, depends on the contract, who their retirement plan is. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public on item 8C. We have a motion by Clerk Barry, support by Trustee Joseph to approve item 8C as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8D.
Item 8D is a recommendation by Supervisor Acciavatti to reappoint Alan Christ to the Parks and Recreation Commission with a term ending June 1st, 2024.
So moved.
Motion by
Support.
Trustee Demink, support by Treasurer Elliott. Discussion.
Mr. Supervisor,
Trustee Joseph.
just a real quick comment. I've known Mr. Christ pretty much since I've lived in the township, and started out in community service with him on the Parks and Rec Board. Mr. Christ has, I think, annually held this Introducing Kids to Fishing event. He works with special needs kids. He works with just anybody that wants to understand how to more safely and effectively utilize outdoor sports. He is just a very generous with his time, all-around great guy, and if you have any questions about anything to do with hunting, fishing, I had the pleasure of shooting trap and skeet with him. The guy, there isn't anything outdoorsy that the guy doesn't know, and is more than willing to share his time to introduce others to the outdoors. He is truly a great asset to this community, and I'm glad that he is interested in continuing his service on the Parks and Rec Commission. So again, kudos to Mr. Christ, and thank you for just being another pillar of our community.
I also, Trustee Demink.
Same thing, I've worked with him for a couple of years on the Parks and Rec, as long as Trustee Joseph, and I'd like to, with the same sentiments, Alan's very active, Let's Fish program, and he's great to have on the Parks and Rec Committee, so.
Tireless support by Mr. Christ to our Parks and Rec Commission. We're going to need him. We're going to need his passion. We're going to need his drive in the coming years as the Salt River Greenway begins to have more recreational activities, and as we, as a community, sort out the future of a Chesterfield Township Rec Center. So I thank him for his past service, and I urge support for additional appointment. Comments from the public? Motion by Trustee Demink, support by Treasurer Elliott to approve item 8D as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Hi.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8E.
Item 8E is a recommendation by Supervisor Acciavatti to reappoint Carl Leonard to the Planning Commission with a term ending June 1st, 2024.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as stated.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Barry, support by Trustee Joseph. Discussion. Carl is unable to be with us here tonight. I fully support him still serving in this capacity. Lot of knowledge in the construction and development area, and he's done a heck of a job every step of the way, and especially since I've been here. So I urge the board to support reappointing Mr. Leonard to the Planning Commission. Comments from the public? We have a motion by Clerk Barry, support by Trustee Joseph, to approve item 8E as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8F.
Item 8F is a recommendation by Supervisor Acciavatti to reappoint Richard LaBelle to the Planning Commission, as well as liaison to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term ending June 1st, 2024.
So moved.
Motion by
Support.
Trustee Joseph, support by, you want me to give you that one? Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Vosberg. Discussion.
I think Mr. Supervisor, Mr. LaBelle's an excellent person on our Planning Commission. I've worked with him several years. He's a great secretary on the Planning Commission. Rick's out here tonight. His knowledge of the electrical field has helped in planning with me, and I'm sure when Trustee Joseph and Trustee Anderson have sat on the different boards, so he's highly recommended and highly qualified for this position. Thank you.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. I too want to thank Mr. LaBelle for his work and continued work. I'm new on the ZBA, and I just listen to what he says and then go, what he says. That's what you want to do, because he asks good questions and knows a lot of answers. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
I share most of the sentiments that were expressed by other board members, although I don't know that I've ever said what he said. Mr. LaBelle, I have a tendency to challenge a lot of things, but what I most appreciate about Mr. LaBelle is while on the Planning Commission, the work that's done sort of behind the scenes in helping the petitioner understand and navigate a very sometimes complicated and overwhelming process. In particular, the signs. Signs have been a very contentious area, not only for our community, but really all over, as a result of the Supreme Court weighing in on what we can and can't disallow and restrict, and it gets very complicated. And Mr. LaBelle does a great job in pre-planning, talking to the petitioner and making sure that we find some common ground and we don't have a need to call Mr. Siebert and say, what do we do with this? And that is really requires somebody who is very steady, very knowledgeable, very well researched. And there have been at least a dozen cases where I thought, if this goes bad, we could really be looking at some litigation and some significant problems. And Mr. LaBelle, the work that you do, talking with petitioners and making sure that they understand and then bringing that information back to the board is really most appreciated. So thanks for your service, thanks for your continued service, and I can support this candidate more strongly, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaBelle. Amazing knowledge, fantastic service. Thank you. Any comments from the public? Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Vosberg to approve item 8F as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8G.
Item 8G is a recommendation by Supervisor Acciavatti to reappoint Ralph Jaworski Jr. to the Planning Commission with a term ending June 1st, 2024.
Do I have a motion? Motion
Support.
by Trustee Demink, support by Trustee Joseph. Discussion. Somebody's got a mic with the gain a little out of whack. Discussion. The gain, or the... Thank you, Ralph. I'm very impressed, and would urge my board to continue the course. Any comments from the public? Motion by Trustee Demink, support by Trustee Joseph to approve item 8G as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8H.
Item 8H is to approve a recommendation from the Department of Public Safety to purchase services from concrete floor treatment for epoxy floor coating of Chesterfield Fire Department Fire Station 1 in the amount of $22,476 from GL number 205340976.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Joseph, support by treasurer trustee Vosberg. Director Kirsten.
So this is one of the final projects to the fire station on 22 Mile Road, where we will paint and epoxy the floor in the bay area of the old bays and then the new additional bays. What we did on this was, it's similar to what is at Fire Station 3. We went out for bid on Mitten. We received 4 quotes for pricing. We met with each vendor. We walked, toured, and through that, we selected what we believe is the most economical and the most efficient covering for this type of service.
Questions? Thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Joseph.
I'm sorry for not getting this to you sooner. Just curious, though, is the epoxy floor application not an appropriate floor covering for the other portion of the fire station? So is this something that can be done maybe in, say, Fire Station 2? Is this a possible application there?
Yes, it is. What you're doing is you're saving your cement from water stains, oil drips from the vehicles. But yes.
I think I'm mixing up my fire stations, though. 22 Mile Road, right?
Yes.
So
I wasn't clear. It is the entire cement floor base, all 6 of them.
I see. Okay.
Speed, I'm sorry.
No, that's, I messed that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Questions from the public on item 8H? Motion by trustee Joseph, support by trustee Vosberg to approve item 8H as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Director Kirsten. Item 8I.
Item 8I is to approve a recommendation by Public Works to award the construction of the New Haven Road Water Main Project, project number 1031-2021, to FDM Contracting, Inc. at a cost of $265,000 from GL number 591-000-150-000.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Demink,
Support.
support by trustee Vosberg. Director Coddington.
Good evening, all. So this project has been in the shorter term to be getting done, and we just did a nice project on 23 Mile Road, and by the way, I can now say that we have water mains on both sides of 23 Mile Road, all the way from I-94 going across to Baker Road. So if we have a fire on either side of the road, we'll never have to drag another fire hose across 23 Mile Road. And that main is up and running and in service, and the job went very well. So to go back on this project, we asked the contractor if there was any possibility, and by the way, this contractor was one of 4 or 5 bids who did come in low bid and worked out well on the 23 Mile Road project, if he could honor the price to do this other Phase 1 on New Haven Road. And he said he could, but we have to, the price of materials in our world is going crazy, just like the lumber and everything else. But he was able to honor this for a short period of time. If we can get this done, he'll be able to complete this for us in very soon. And the other thing I wanted to comment on this job is the property that we're going to be covering across has already prepaid this in a previous, their front footage cost years ago. So it's overdue to get this property with fire suppression and water main going across in front of it. And this is where by the by Pollard Park, a good portion of Pollard Park, come out across the park and then, and down past the Monicati building there where they're building their new detail center. And that part of New Haven Road's getting improved quite a bit there, so it looks nice over there.
Questions from the board? Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, JR, just, so the actual cost will be, after all those things, is $265,000, correct, for this
That-
project?
Yes, that would be the max.
All right, thank you.
Any comments from the public?
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. When this project first started, there was some questions on traffic control, lump sum payment of $10,000. And it was kind of pushed aside, saying that this is the way normal business is done, which is contrary to MDOT. At the town hall meeting on the 17th, there was a specification for the cement for sidewalks and driveways on MDOT. So when I went on MDOT, there's Michigan.gov documents, zone and traffic control. It's a 74-page document that tells you what traffic control is and what it should be. And it's not a one lump sum payment of one, according to the city of Detroit or MDOT. First of all, it requires a traffic control plan, and then there's guidelines for signs, guidelines for based on miles per hour, number of barrels. There's the color of the clothing, the layouts, the partial lane closures. None of this is actually documented for what we get in traffic control, and it never has been. And if somebody doesn't do, we're just going to continue pushing our heads against the wall and paying for a one lump sum payment of one for something that isn't real. When they did the 23-mile water main, there was traffic control that doesn't conform to MDOT requirements. They had a lane blocked off. You go all the way down the lane, and there's a front end loader. That's not what this 74-page document says that MDOT requires for traffic control. So we're living in the dark ages, and we keep telling ourselves this is the way we always do business. And that's not the way smart business is done. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public? Comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Microphone off so we don't get feedback up here. Thank you, Mr. Coddington. As it relates to the continued concerns about traffic control, I share them. This is something that finds its way into almost every road project, and it always includes a unit price of one. There's never a detailed breakdown, and the cost associated with that varies widely. We see it in the bids when the companies come in for bid. We can have tens of thousands of dollars in disparity between the bidders, and it is probably the most widely fluctuating item as I go down the bids between companies, and you can see materials. You can see that they're all competing and purchasing materials within a consistent range and how many are needed. But that traffic control catch-all seems to be the one that just sticks with me as well. And I know that when we've talked about it in the past, it usually opens up a can of worms, and I don't want to do that tonight. And I looked at this bid and I see the overall project, and I empathize with Mr. Coddington, who really just wants to get this project done. It's been in the works for some time. I think you've done a good job to the extent that you're allowed to. You bring the issue forward. It goes out to bid. It's sort of out of your control. We open the bids and we go with the lowest qualified bidder. But this is a practice that really does need to change, and every time it comes up, again, it's usually an area of divisiveness, but this is an area where, especially some of the big projects that Mr. Coddington is sort of put on our radar and the capital improvements that I hope to see us do in the future. It really, you know, 20,000 here, 40,000 there, before you know it, you got a lot of money. And when you go out to some of these projects where we have traffic control, for anybody that doesn't know, traffic control becomes this very catch-all thing with us, and it could be anything from somebody carrying a sign that says slow and a guy at the other end saying stop, and it could be a barrel. It could be, you know, but as the speaker, Treasurer Acciavatti, came forward and said, these are all very detailed and documented requirements. I don't know what we do to make sure that we get our money's worth out of these things, aside from just turning it over to the company and saying, well, the company is responsible for traffic control. It's a major concern for me, and it's the area where I think we could get a little bit further with our budget if we you know, required a more detailed account of how many hours and what types of traffic control we're purchasing. I'm grateful we haven't had any major incidences with pedestrians or traffic, you know, crashes, but I don't know why the disparity in the pricing. I never understood it, and I don't know that I can ever wrap my arms around why we would accept a bid where one company says it's a $40,000 item and another company says it's an $8,000 item, or in some instances even greater disparity. But we accept it, and I think as long as we accept it, we're going to continue to get it. On this particular issue, this is an item that has been talked about, and I don't want to delay Mr. Coddington and his team from moving forward for an issue that is really a board decision. So, you know, we continue to work and try to see where we go in the future with getting a handle on this traffic control item, which shows itself in almost every major project. But for tonight, I'm going to support this agenda item, and appreciate Mr. Coddington bringing it forward in a detailed way.
Thanks. I'd just like to comment a little bit on that. So, like on the 23-mile road plan, the MDOT daily comes by and checks the signage and the barrels and that, and they're not afraid to stop if something's not being done the way they want it done. They don't want to see anybody hurt, injured, killed by any means also. And I just wanted to comment that they go over the plans, they tell the contractor where the signage is going to be, the separation between them, what kind of signage. So there is a little more detail into it, and they do make sure that the contractor is doing his best to follow through to keep safety out there on that road. I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. One quick one from me. Very happy that engineering and DPW saw an opportunity. We kind of got a hyperinflation situation, or an inflative situation going on, not only for receiving material, but for the price of those materials, everything from a 2x4 to PVC pipe to ductile iron. It's affecting everything. This contractor was very competitive. It was bid at the proper time, so we got competitive numbers. In adding this chunk, which is a critical piece and required piece for fire protection at the Matacati Auto site on but next to Pollard, is a very something I support very much, adding this as a change order to this contract. One quick one on just, I want to make sure that the public's very clear. There's no safety issues, and every single bid of this project and every other project that the township bids that has traffic specifications is approved by MDOT. The MDOT book, we call it the Bible. It's the MDOT specification book. It comes out, it's about 3 inches thick, lays out every single possible scenario. And there's multiple ways to pay for traffic control and multiple options that an owner has for different jobs. There are lump sums for minor traffic and major traffic, or traffic control in the MDOT specification. There are also per barrel items. There are also square footage of signs on Class 3 barricades. In each project, those items are bid differently for whatever is most efficient for the owner. And those discussions can occur when a job comes out. The traffic control item catch-all, as trustee Joseph stated, is there to protect the owner. When you're talking about barrels by the each or signs by the each for class 3s, which are the big barricades, whenever those barrels get touched, there's a pay item. That does not necessarily work with these type of projects. So our engineering team and our DPW team look at not only each type of contract, but each type of, all the options that we have, and they're laid out very clearly in the MDOT specification book, and also supplemental specifications that come from MDOT. This stretch happens to be an MDOT jurisdiction road, so they actually had to give a permit based on a traffic control plan and a safety plan for that project. So I'm very comfortable with not only the change order, but the amazing work that our vendor and DPW does to manage these projects. So thank you very much. We have a motion by trustee Demink, support by trustee Vosberg, to approve item 8I as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8J.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8J is to approve a request by Public Works to purchase Syncta backflow test management software from Watts at a total cost of $6,750 from GL number 591-441-801-000.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by trustee Clerk Berry.
Support.
Support by trustee Vosberg. Assistant Director Johnson.
Yes, good evening again. So this software program is something that's kind of been in the making for past few years. You guys may not know, but we have one cross-connection inspector in our department, Tom Rotarius. He's been with us about 6 months. Prior to him, it was Tony Pettix. But they work very hard to make sure all the backflow devices on our commercial, industrial, and such are working properly to make sure we keep any chemicals from coming into our water main system. It's a very important job, and we need to make sure that all the testing is properly done and that the records are being kept in an orderly fashion so that we can make sure we're checking all 1,600 backflow devices we have in our township. This software, they've been working off an Excel spreadsheet, putting together a spreadsheet for the past 2 years. Along with James Jossie in our department, so the three of them done a great job of compiling the data that now we can put into this software program. And this software program will allow companies who do the testing to submit their documents online through a portal that our cross-connection inspector can now review and approve. And all the information will be easily collected in one spot. It is hosted on Syncta's, Watts server. It's on their own server, it's not on our own. So it's completely separate from our IT. And this will make sure that all the testers who are doing the testing are certified, they're insured, all their gauges and stuff are properly certified. It does a lot of work to make our cross-connection inspector that much more functional moving forward. One thing I did not check off on this agenda item was the IT. I did check with Paul Evans, our IT coordinator, as well as Cody Mallory from High Tech to make sure they were aware of the software program. They understand it is not going to touch anything existing with our software or our server or anything, so they're fully aware of that, so I apologize for missing that checkbox. And I welcome any questions you guys may have.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
No, I'm sorry, we were just, the work that was done on this was much appreciated, so again, thanks for spelling it out. Trustee Anderson and I were doing a little last-minute conversation on that, so just appreciate the work that was done on this.
No problem.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Motion by Clerk Berry, support by trustee Vosberg to approve item 8J as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Director
Thank you.
Johnson. Item 8K.
Item 8K is to approve a recommendation by Leisure Services Department and Facilities and Operations Departments to purchase 2 Easy Go Valor golf carts from Michigan Golf Cart in the amount of $15,000 from GL number 000-140-000.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to support Trustee Domink's motion.
Knew that was coming.
Yeah, I did.
Motion by trustee Demink, support by trustee Joseph to approve item 8K. Discussion from the board.
Supervisor, in residence, the golf carts we've had out at the park are on their last leg. They're archaic. Surprised the axle hasn't fallen off and somebody hasn't gotten hurt. Josh and Amanda will have any comments, but we need to move this forward, to update it for transportation of people around the park when we have to take them out to certain areas. So that's why I'm in full support of this, also as the liaison to Parks and Rec.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just like to echo trustee Demink's comments and even add to it that it's the current golf carts that we have are in fact a considerable liability, and with the purpose that they're going to be used for, those absolutely we have to ensure that those are safe, and that this replacement is not even optional as far as I'm concerned. We need to have these. We need to be able to provide the service to our visitors to the park, for those who are not able to get around the park. They need that transportation, and we need to provide a safe mechanism for that. Only question that I do have for the directors before they speak is, did we explore any opportunities for grants or any kind of ADA funding?
We did. We tried to look at every option. We looked at leasing and renting, cost per day. There wasn't a lot available. The biggest problem we had is availability of the actual carts. We really looked at, if you look at the spreadsheet that we provided, the first grouping of carts that you see on that spreadsheet, we actually were going to purchase those carts. We brought them out, we test drove them, we liked them. It's just a newer brand, but when we dug a little bit deeper, the service and the accessibility, I guess, to get those carts weren't really up to par compared to like a name brand like we went after. So after visiting and calling countless places to try to find carts, because like everything else, there's apparent cart shortage, I believe. If we looked around, the current vendor got them in and reached out to us and said, hey, we got those carts we were looking for. So we went ahead and moved on those. Now, to answer your question, we did look, but there wasn't a lot available for that. But like you said before, these carts are 20 years old. This was an issue that we identified a couple years ago, and Amanda's been asking us over and over and over. So we appreciate your comments.
Any comments from the public on item 8K?
Paul Afata, 48055 Mallard. I just have a question. I noticed that all those quotes are from different companies throughout the area.
Please address the board through, they'll be able to hear you.
So my question is you are going with E-Z-Go golf carts. E-Z-Go golf carts is part of Textron. Textron is a government contractor, and they do have special programs for state and local municipalities. And I'm just wondering if anybody called Brittany Bowes to find out if there were any special discounts, because I know that lumber and everything else is going up, and I know that Brandenburg Park struggles every year financially, so every nickel and dime we could save could be a possibility. But Textron does have a government sales. Don't know if anybody checked.
Please. Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Any further comments from the board?
Yeah, again, just in terms of the questions posed, do we know if this particular purchase is part of the sort of fleet sales that we see with other, DPW vehicles or anything like that? Is this something that we could secure a government rate for, and what is that rate if there is one?
So there is options. That's why we always appreciate Paul's comments, and we did look into that, but the problem is because of the shortage of carts, accessing those carts, they really couldn't define a timeline. Just like automobiles, we ordered our automobiles, but we might wait till August or September to get those. Well, carts was even worse. We actually reached all the way down to Florida just to see if it was true across the nation or just locally the shortage of carts. So we did do our due diligence. We reached out. I don't know, don't quote me on this. I don't know if it's exactly the the fund that Paul's referred to. I can look into that. But we did reach out to several different options, and we looked for any kind of government pricing. And the problem was there's a line to get to that pricing. So we could wait a year or two to get those carts to save a couple $100s. So we just looked at it like these carts were available. Let's get these carts, move on them now. We're going to a season. We got a 10-acre park. We got to move a lot of people around that park. Safety was a concern, so we took advantage of the carts that were available.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that decision-making process, and I agree. You said a couple $100s, so you do know the price, the government price is only a couple $100 of savings?
I can't speak to that exactly, because once we didn't get that far down the road, because that program, the waiting list was so long that we needed to move on this. So if you prefer, we can go back and do some more homework. We did a lot. We struggled to get these carts, to actually see the carts that were driven around our site. The first carts that you see on your spreadsheet, we struggled to get one of those just to see it because the product was so new, and we were leery about those carts. We feel comfortable purchasing the EasyGo carts because it's such a reputable name, and we know the quality's there. So that's why we decided if these carts are available, we'd move on these carts.
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Sonnenberg, and just for the record, I don't have the discretion for preference. There was a board action seconded, and that's what we're voting on. But I would appreciate forwarding maybe an email. I'd like to see, the process that you're talking about, and I'm concerned. It seems like the program should be expanded. If there's a state rate and you can't access a cart for 2 years, what's the point of having a state rate? So I'd like to call and inquire about that. But for our needs on this board, I think clearly Leisure Services has demonstrated a need, and any delay in that need, as was pointed out by other board members, poses some risk factor. But I'm a little interested in knowing why would we have a guaranteed state rate that maybe only saves us a couple $100 and is 2 years down the road. So if you could just email me where you're looking there, I'd like to look into that, and for future, because I think you might need a few more carts. And the other thing I noticed from the budget was that that other vehicle that's used by some of your park staff, that Gator, I think it's called, is on its last legs too. And that is something that I know you budgeted for a used, but with the amount of work that's being done in our parks and the anticipated utilization of our parks, that might be something we might want to look at new as well. And you only had 18,000 to work with, so these two new carts take up a chunk of that. And maybe we need to look at a budget amendment for those Gators, because those are right around the corner. I had the pleasure of seeing those last week, and they're pretty close to where the carts are. So more to follow. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, and just to expand a little bit, so, obviously we have a fleet of 44 automobiles. We do a lot more trucks and vehicle purchase than we do golf carts. This is the first golf cart purchase we've made in over 20 years in the township. So golf carts aren't something that we usually purchase, but we absolutely will. We will trace down any leads and make sure that we're getting the best price possible. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion by Trustee Demink, support by Trustee Joseph, to approve item 8K as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott. Aye. Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, board member, for passing that from everyone at Leisure Services.
Item 8L.
Item 8L is to accept the written resignation of Supervisor Dan Acciavatti effective July 6th, 2021 at 12 p.m.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the written resignation of Supervisor Dan Acciavatti.
Support.
Oh, that sure came out quick, Clerk Berry. Support by Treasurer Elliott. If I could, I did submit the following letter to the Board of Trustees. Dear honorable members of the Chesterfield Township Board of Trustees, it has been an honor serving as Chesterfield Township Supervisor since November of 2016. I am proud of the progress that we have made together. I am grateful to the employees and the vendors of Chesterfield Township. Their support and dedication to public service is admirable. Thank you to the residents of Chesterfield Township for trusting me with the incredible responsibility to lead our community. I look forward to continuing to serve you as part of the Macomb County Department of Public Works team. Please accept this transmittal as my official notification for my resignation as Chesterfield Township Supervisor effective July 6th, 2021 at 12 p.m. That letter was submitted to the board on May 19th, 2021. Couple more. I gave everything I had to Chesterfield Township for the last 4.5 years. Every part of my being. And the Chesterfield Township team, the department heads, the employees, the vendors, in turn, gave me everything I asked of them. And also gave everything they had to our community. And I want to thank you and thank you. The next 6 weeks, there'll be a lot of discussion and talk, but I strongly believe at this point, the best thing to say is the results of the last 4 years will speak for themselves. I'll let the results and the progress do the speaking at the time being. I'm committed to a smooth transition to whoever the next Chesterfield Township Supervisor will be. I am still the supervisor till July 6th, 2020 at noon. I will not be far as I start the next chapter in my life as Deputy Macomb County Drain Commissioner under Commissioner Candace Miller. I'm excited that the mission moving forward, at least in my path, will be one of environmental protection, one of economic development coordination, utilizing our tool, the infrastructure, which is the foundation of our communities, as our main tool to that end. And I get to serve with former supervisor, former county clerk, former Secretary of State, former U.S. Congressperson, and current Macomb County Public Works Commissioner Candace Miller. So you add those three things together, environmental protection, economic development, infrastructure, and Candace Miller. I'm just grateful for the opportunity, and I will give everything I can to that countywide cause as well. I thank you to the board, to the community, to the vendors for trusting me with this awesome responsibility. And as Ronnie Millsap said, I think best, I wouldn't have missed it for the world. So with that, I'll bring it up to the board. Trustee Joseph.
I know that there are probably board members have a lot to say, so I was willing to sit down and let somebody else speak first. But Mr. Supervisor, my intention for the remainder of your term is really to not take issue with many things as I can avoid. I'd like to see your last time here on the board be one of really, I guess no other way to say it, nice. I'd like to see us end nicely. But I would like for you to consider a couple of things in your on your way out. I think from the moment the resignation notice came out and was made available, there began a process of sort of jockeying and a lot of uncertainty. And maybe we can talk about it more in the next agenda item, but I made a few calls when I learned.
If I could, that probably would be more appropriate in the next item because it's specifically related to
Sure,
that
but
piece of it.
this is applicable to your letter, if I could, and I'll save the balance of it for. But in the discussions that took place immediately after I learned of your letter to the board, there was nonstop calls, and I'm sure every member of the board received them, and it goes something like this. Trustee Demink probably received, I don't even know how many phone calls, and they started with, "Good afternoon, Supervisor Demink." And there is mass speculation about what does this mean on a political level for you, the county, and so anybody that's been around politics knows that these things are occurring, And the difficulty that we run into with your resignation taking place on July 6th is that we've pretty much guaranteed 6 more weeks of that. And I understand that we have some projects, and I know that you have pushed very hard for some of them, but the uncertainty that is created with a July 6th resignation brings a tremendous hardship to the board in terms of having to deal with all of the rumors and speculation about who's going where and who's what. Again, we're going to talk process in the next agenda item, but in terms of your letter of resignation, it creates a real hardship for us as a board, because as political things have a tendency to do, they get real ugly and they get real complicated, and they create really a tremendous uncertainty for the township employees and the department heads in particular, trying to field questions of what to do and how to do it and who's going to be the next leader and so forth. We went through a very, very ugly process in November. We took an oath. We committed to 4 years. I understand this is a tremendous opportunity for you, but the July 6th date creates a span of time that kind of exacerbates some of the challenges that we're going to be facing as a board to try to fill your shoes. And so I was wondering if there's any possibility that you would give some consideration to your July 6th date and balance that out with the things that you would like to close in terms of loops and where that leaves the township. And of course, any sort of tie in the consideration of those things, I would hope you would give to the residents and the employees of the township, because I know you know full well, you've been in the legislature, you've been very active in the community with a number of campaigns, and I think you know what happens when you announce your resignation and people start lining up for your to be your successor. Tremendous uncertainty for the employees who just went through this, and again, I would ask you to please consider what you need to close the loops that you need and bring in a resignation date hopefully earlier than July 6th, so that we can put some certainty at the most important position we have in this township, which is that of the township supervisor.
Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public? Motion by Clerk Barry. Well, go ahead. This is only on 8L, not on 8M.
Paul Lafata, 48055 Mallard. Didn't expect this to happen, but it has. And part of the problem I see is Supervisor Acciavatti is an excellent politician, but I don't think he's the best manager in the world. Just my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion. We've grown government in the last 4 years. We've got every general ledger budget is pretty much underwater going forward. There's a lot to consider. I think in the last 4 years, we've made too many changes. We've outsourced too much. And I think we almost need a recuperation or restructuring plan moving forward once Supervisor Acciavatti leaves, because it's going to be difficult, because we can't keep operations going the way they are because we don't have the funding. And it's in black and white paper. Look at the budgets every year. I'm waiting for the Plant Moran audit, which usually is out by now. That's the real report card. And you're gonna watch all of the fund balances are gonna shrink. And they're not gonna grow next year, and they're not gonna grow the year after that. So we need to take into consideration, we've got a hard way moving forward. And the sooner we get started, the better it's going to be. So instead of a lot of intertwined what's going to happen to me, which is going to be happening in those offices over there, it might be a good idea what Trustee Joseph said and cut it short. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. Supervisor Acciavatti, I agree with Treasurer LaFata. I accept your resignation. A lot of the residents of Chesterfield accept your resignation. And nothing personal. You're not a good manager. You have never led by example. I know you talk about being integrity-driven, but I haven't seen that. So, but good luck with your next endeavors at the county level. All I can tell you is this, I mean, at the county level, you're going to be with the big boys and the big girls at the county level. And what went on here in Chesterfield, you're not going to be able to get away with it at the county level. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
Michelle Wilson Merriweather, 52860 Muirfield Drive, Chesterfield. I just wanted to speak on the subject at hand. Supervisor Acciavatti, everyone is entitled to their opinion, but I'm just going to give you mine. My experiences with you have been positive. I am very satisfied with the leadership that you have shown in the areas that I personally consider to be important in our township. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I wish you the best, and I want to thank you for the experiences that I have had, because they've been positive. I wish you the best.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Back up to the board. Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I was trying to come up with some way to say that I'm going to vote no on this, hoping that you would stay. But I realize this is a new chapter in your life, and I really am happy for you that you have this opportunity. And I also think that you are a man of vision. You have, over the years that you have served publicly, that's been very clear. I've worked with you when you were in the legislature. I worked with you on many other campaigns or things, and I don't mean political campaigns, but just things in general, things you did to make our community a better place, and I appreciate it. And I so much appreciate the vision that you brought to Chesterfield Township. It is because of your work that we now have a beautiful waterfront. We have new waterways that we can enjoy. We have the Nature Center. There's just so many things that you have brought to us. And as a previous speaker at a different meeting was talking about, like, your first week here, we were able to see across into the historic village from here because all of this drainage got cleaned up here, and I appreciate that as just one example of the many things that you've done to make this a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a couple of Trustee Domingue.
Dan, it's been a pleasure working with you. I've learned a lot. Your knowledge of underground and sewers has definitely been helpful. Getting Weber done, the work at Brandenburg. But I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you. I know there's been differences on this board with the seven of us over the years. Since you've been up here, David and I have been up here longer. We've had our boxing gloves on over the years. But I wish you the best. I wish you the best working for Candace and whatever your future endeavors are. It's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed it, and keep in touch. Thank you.
I got 2 more meetings. Thank you. Treasurer Elliott.
It has been an honor working with you, Supervisor Acciavatti. It has been an adventure. I have had to invest in muck boots and following you around and learning all about sewers and the underground work, and it has been like a master's course and in working on various projects. It has been a lot of fun. I am not at all surprised that Candace Miller recognized your talent in this area, and I think we are very lucky that you're going to be starting this next stage of your journey, working and putting your skills and talents to work for the county. So I want to thank you.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. For those of you who are familiar with how township government functions on a daily basis, the clerk and the supervisor's office work very closely together, and it's been a privilege and an honor to do that with you, sir. I will say that in the 5+ years that we have worked together, Supervisor Acciavatti has always been available, accessible, has always been respectful, has never, over 5 years, even if he got irritated with me on occasion, never uttered one disrespectful or unkind word to me, and always treated me with respect and dignity, as he does everyone who works with him. I've never had anything but a positive experience with him, even when we kind of went head to head over how much real estate the clerk's office was going to get, so, in the office. But we always had a respectful, meaningful conversation about whatever the issue was at hand, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate that. A consummate gentleman, start to finish, and I was always proud to introduce Supervisor Acciavatti to anyone as a representative of our township. And it's unfortunate that you're going to be leaving us, but at the same time, I will say that right after our first, Supervisor Acciavatti's first term, he sat down with me for 3 hours and explained in underground infrastructure. And he was kind enough to do that, and it became incredibly clear to me immediately that there was no one in Macomb County who could possibly love underground infrastructure and have a better understanding of it more than Dan Acciavatti does. So the fact that you're leaving us is unfortunate, but where you are going, the entire county will now benefit from that tremendous amount of knowledge and passion that you show for that particular area of our government, and I think it's well-deserved, and I'm very pleased that you will be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, Mr. Acciavatti, safe journey. Take care.
Thank you. I will attempt to answer Trustee Joseph's question, and I'll restate. During the next 6 weeks, there will be plenty of time to speak about the results and the position we're in now and the opportunities we have in the future. Tonight, I am going to just let those results speak the truth through the progress that will be shared in the coming days. The date was picked with a lot of thought. Maybe I'll answer your first question first. What this is, and only what this is Dan Acciavatti resigning as Chesterfield Township Supervisor as of July 6th, 2021 at noon to go serve with Candace Miller as her Deputy Drain Commissioner, Public Works Commissioner, with the mission of protecting the environment, coordinating economic development, and using infrastructure as our tool. What it is not is anything else. So let me be very clear on that. What it is I am going to work with Candace Miller countywide on environmental issues, coordinating economic development, and using infrastructure to that end. What it is not is any inference of any other dominoes or political things that will fall. So that should make that very clear. The July 6th date, which is 6 weeks from today, that number it will not change. It is July 6, 21 at 12 o'clock. And the reason for that is as smooth of a transition as possible. So depending on what happens on the next item, there could be multiple dominoes to fall, and it's too important, and I'm hopeful that the remaining 6 members can choose the next supervisor, which will be on a temporary basis if they do that. There will be an election shortly thereafter in August and November of 2022. That process will be explained on the next item. Having a shorter period of time there didn't seem like it was fair, with a couple holidays bookended with the needing somebody in the chair for those times, and allowing that 45 days, because there could be breaks depending on which way the board chooses. There could be several weeks where another job has to be terminated, or somebody else's life has to be flipped upside down. So that date is set in stone. I will not change it. It will be July 6th, 2021 at noon. And I think I've cleared up what this move was, and everything else it's not. Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification, Mr. Supervisor, and my apologies if I implied that there was any domino created on your end. That was not it at all. What I was just pointing out, as I think you kind of pointed out in the tail end of your comments, is that your decision will have an impact in the township, and that there will be, others' lives who will take a different path, maybe an unintended path, and that will bear itself out. I wasn't inferring that there was anything about your being involved with, any kind of domino. In terms of discussing your legacy and your accomplishments over the next 6 weeks, I assure you that I have no interest in that, in disputing anything that is presented. I heard a lot of very flattering things from fellow board members about your vision, and in a lot of ways, I share that vision. I feel on some levels disappointed that you're leaving because I think it has the feeling of being at a very nice restaurant, and we've had a wonderful meal, and there's been a lot of things ordered, and I feel on some levels that you're going to be leaving before the bill arrives, but that is something that I think we can discuss at a later date. And I have nothing but positive things to say about your transition, and I think immediately after the announcement, the Macomb Daily, I don't know if the reporter was looking for any, political foe, and I'll go to Joseph because they've had the most, cantankerous stuff. But I have nothing but positive things, and I agree with Clerk Barry on some level. I've watched you out on sites, and I've seen you at Story Point, and I've heard you.
Call the question, Mr. Supervisor.
Motion to call the question by Trustee Vosberg.
Ouch.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by Treasurer Elliott. There's been a motion to call the question. Clerk Barry, please call the roll on the motion to call the question.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion passes. Clerk Barry, will you please call the roll on item 8L? And Attorney Siebert, do I vote on this item?
I was just thinking about that, and I think the answer is yes. There's nothing in the statute that disqualifies you. Hopefully, it won't be that close.
Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
I guess so.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8M, if I could, Attorney Siebert, item 8M is one that I will not be taking part of, and I don't believe. Is it appropriate to move this item down the agenda and
Well,
allow this to happen in my absence?
Why are you not going to participate?
Well, I'm asking if it is appropriate
It's
for me to
clearly- it-
participate in the process.
It clearly is required that you participate at a board matter in the discussion. How the process unfolds tonight, we'll have to see what the board does. But the only prohibition in the statute is that you cannot vote on your replacement. That's clear.
Understood.
But we're not doing that tonight. All you're doing is talking about what process, if any, the board wants to use to select a
Understood.
successor.
Clerk Barry, item 8M.
Item 8M is a discussion of procedures for filling the vacancy in the office of Township Supervisor, which will exist as of July 6th, 2021 at 12 p.m.
Do I have a motion? Oh, motion to discuss. Oh, yeah, this is just a discussion.
So moved.
Trustee Joseph, let's, open discussion, Trustee Joseph. We might as well run through it now. Support?
Support.
Support by Clerk Barry. Discussion, and I do want to make sure we stay on the procedures for filling the vacancy in the office only for supervisor.
Mr. Supervisor, would you like to take a vote on opening discussion?
Yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. we can discuss. Attorney Siebert, if you would. Maybe speak from a legal standpoint and what's in the statute and what the process should look like, or could look like moving forward.
Well, just to state the obvious, an elected official's position becomes vacant on the happening of a certain event, and one of those events in the statute is resignation. The statutory scheme for this is not central to any particular laws in Michigan. They're scattered all over. Part of them are in the Michigan election laws. Some of them are in the statutory sections that deal with township positions, elected positions. But these are the basic rules to follow. The township supervisor, or any board member for that matter, that attempts to resign has to put the resignation in writing, which has been done, has to be submitted to the board through the clerk's office, which was done, and it has to be accepted by the township board, which has been done. The statute does allow the elected official who is resigning to pick a date that is in the future, which has been done. The statute also provides that if the date is given in the future, in other words, it's not an immediate resignation, that the township board may, not required, may appoint a successor within 30 days prior to the effective date of the resignation. I haven't done the calendar, but assuming 30 days prior to July 6th is June 6th, the township board within that 30-day period could vote to appoint the successor. Of course, that individual would not take office until 12/01 on July 6th. The supervisor may not participate in that vote under the ordinance. If the board does not take action to appoint within that 30-day window before July 6th, the office then becomes vacant on the 6th. The statute provides that if you do not make an appointment within 45 days of the vacancy, then the county clerk is required to schedule a special election. So from a practical standpoint, you've got 30 days prior to July 6th to make a decision if you so choose. And if you don't, you then have 45 days after the 6th to make an appointment. I can't imagine you wouldn't do it in either of those windows, but if for some reason you didn't, then there would be an election held by the county.
Thank you. Clerk Barry.
Pete, there was something I couldn't quite hear, the 30-day window?
Yeah, the statute says that if an elected official who is resigning sets the effective resignation date in the future, in other words, in the future from when the board accepts the resignation. In other words, supervisor could have said, I'm going to effectively resign tonight. The position of supervisor would have become vacant tonight. The statute permits the official to select a resignation date in the future, which is what the supervisor did. This office will become vacant at noon on July 6th. The statute then provides that in those instances in which there's a future resignation date, the board may, 30 days prior to that effective resignation date, 30 days prior to July 6th, may vote to select the successor. So you've got that window, so you can get the ball rolling in that 1 month before the supervisor's position becomes vacant. You can select the successor. You can even give them the oath of office, but they do not take the seat until 12/01 on July 6th. If you choose not to do that, for whatever reason you decide not to, and you do not appoint anybody by noon on July 6th, then the office is vacant and you have 45 days to select someone or an election will be held. And just to follow up, another question that you may ask is, what do you have to do to qualify for the office? The qualification requirements are minimal. You have to be an elector of the township, and you have to have residency for 30 days. To be an elector, you need to be a United States citizen, and you need to be 18 years of age. So anybody that is a resident for 30 days is 18 years of age and is a U.S. citizen and registered to vote is qualified for the office. Finally, there are no procedures set forth in the statute for how you fill the office. You're not required to accept resumes. You're not required to accept applications. You're not required to do anything. You can simply come to the next meeting, put it on as an agenda item, somebody can make a motion, and you'll do a round robin until you got 4 votes. On the other hand, in a neighboring community of yours, we had a township board member pass away, and they have decided that they're going to accept applications. That is purely discretionary, not required, but that is entirely your call. Or any other method you want to use, quite frankly, to do it. But you've got a blank sheet of paper.
Clerk Barry, on item 8M, procedures for filling the vacancy of Township Supervisor.
So from a practical standpoint, after consulting with other clerks and colleagues in my field who handle this type of an event, there are 3 primary processes. As Attorney Siebert said, you can essentially create anything that you want. What I have found in my canvas of those individuals is that there were basically 3 most likely processes to follow. First is, as Attorney Siebert said, the board simply puts an agenda item on the agenda, and that individual, an appointment is made without accepting any type of input from the public as far as applications or letters of interest or anything on that order. The second is to open up a window of time that the board will accept through the clerk's office. The clerk's office will accept application or letters of interest from those qualified individuals who would like to be considered by the board for the appointment. The third option is for the board to appoint a committee to vet the applications and the applicants that have been submitted to the clerk's office prior to it going to the board, and it would come as a recommendation from that committee to the board, and then the board would then go on to make their determination. So those are the 3 most common methods that clerks have used in the past. As clerk here in Chesterfield, I will implement whichever, or if there is a completely alternate option, I will implement whatever the board dictates that we do. From a practical standpoint, I would suggest to my fellow board members that in an effort to be fair, open, and transparent, I would prefer to have the option number 2, which is to open up a window for any qualified individual to submit application through a standardized process to the clerk's office. Those applications will then be forwarded to board members for their vetting and consideration, and then the board will then at a later or a future board meeting prior to July 6th make a motion to make a decision on the appointment. However, again, whichever the board chooses, whatever method we decide today, the clerk's office will implement, providing that it is acceptable to the township attorney. Thank you.
Who would like to go in the queue? Trustee Anderson? I just want to see who wanted to go in the queue. And I'll come back to Trustee Joseph because he's already been on this one. Trustee Anderson. Oh, Trustee Joseph.
I appreciate the explanation from the attorney, and I agree and I understand Clerk Berry's laying out of the process. From my recollection, the neighboring community that took it to a committee, they were dealing with their clerk and not their supervisor?
No, they are dealing with a trustee, and they're not doing it by committee.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of, I was actually thinking of Clerk Keys, and I don't know how that process went, but I appreciate the I'm unaware of any community, maybe you can correct me if you've been in one, where the supervisor was the individual board member who vacated their seat.
I'm not aware of any, and I have not had that experience.
The difficulty with that board level is the statutory responsibilities that are that lie with the supervisors. So the day-to-day operations of the township rest solely with the supervisor. It is the CEO of our organization. So there's the 1/7 voting member of our board, and then the operational side, which is all of our day-to-day operations. So for that reason and a few others, I am not in favor of a prolonged, and this is just my opinion, I am not in favor of a prolonged process. In fact, attaching fair, open, and transparent to the idea, I hope doesn't mean that an alternative plan is not fair, open, and transparent, because I believe we have talent within the township right now that I'm prepared to make the nomination at our next meeting, and will, on June 8th, bring forward an individual that I would like to appoint. I won't mention that individual's name right now because I think there is a process that should be undertaken where that individual fully accepts the responsibilities before the nomination goes forward. But it is something that I've caucused with a couple of fellow board members, and if that individual is unwilling or unable, my next nomination will be an existing board member, and that would be Trustee DeMink. And I do that, and I say that to my fellow board members for something that I hope will resonate with Supervisor Acciavatti. I think you may have been at Michigan at the time, and I'm referencing that in March of 1989, little before your time, but I know that you follow Michigan basketball very closely. And in 1989, the head basketball coach at the University of Michigan, word got out just prior to March Madness that Coach Frieder had accepted a position with Arizona, I believe. He was leaving the Michigan basketball program prior to March Madness. And then Athletic Director Bo Schembechler said that he was relieving Coach Frieder of his duties and put Steve Fisher, the assistant coach, at the helm. And the explanation that was given by Athletic Director Schembechler was that it is a Michigan man that will coach Michigan. And in this instance, I believe it should be a Chesterfield man or woman that takes over for what is truly the most fair, open, and transparent process, which is back to the people. It goes back to the people to decide. So for the 18 months that our board has the ability to put forward a candidate, I believe that candidate should be a Chesterfield man or woman. And I was, the question was called, and I'm not going to elaborate it because it's clearly a sore subject, but we have a number of issues facing us as a township, and several of them are budget related.
Stay
and I
on-
would like,
stay-
I
stay
am,
on-
I
stay
am,
on
sir.
the on the
I'm not
process.
encroaching on your legacy.
We'll have
I
plenty
am
of time
staying
on
there.
this, don't
I
worry.
don't want to. I just would like to speak if I may.
We're going to.
Thank you. So we have issues that require a candidate to hit the ground running, in my opinion, and that candidate should be somebody that is very, very knowledgeable in the employees, somebody that's been here for, in this particular case, with the candidate I plan to bring forward, for decades, and secondarily, the backup plan, if you will, is another Chesterfield person, and that is Trustee DeMink, who has made it very clear that he's not interested in being the supervisor and wasn't planning on it, but he too shares a belief that we are at a critical point, and the candidate that goes forward should be well-versed in the knowledge and the staff that we have. And so I'm glad to hear that we have the option, and I wished I would have done a little more homework and could have avoided my request for you to speed up the date. You were clearly aware of something I wasn't, so I'd like to apologize for that, because I think we could be in a position where a candidate could come forward, and there is clear benefit for you sticking around a little longer to help that individual. So I apologize for not doing my homework on the process, because I thought we were working with a a 45-day window from the point of resignation, and to me, it looked like we were wasting time. I was wrong. I should have checked that out before. So I think there is some serious advantage to at least the candidate that I'm thinking of having a supervisor in place. So we have some shadowing opportunities and some opportunities potentially to work out a number of other issues that will be facing us. And I'm going to shut up on this, but lastly, I want to thank Trustee Demink because we've had a number of conversations, and I know your commitment to this township, and I know what you would like to see happen, and a willingness to step up when we both made jokes about our blood pressure and all the pressure that comes with that, but to stand up and say, if not this, I feel very strongly that I need to step up. And I respect that immensely, and despite the fact that we haven't agreed all the way, it reinforces the fact that it needs to be a Chesterfield man or woman that takes this post, and thank you for that.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. A question to the attorney. What does the statute provide if there is no one is appointed to fill that position?
Well, again,
You'd mentioned the election, but in the interim, then how does the township operate?
okay, we know for sure on the 6th at noon, you have a vacant office. The statute, because the supervisor has given you more than a month forward before the resignation takes effect, the statute envisioned a scenario like that and gave the board a 1-month opportunity before that date to select someone to replace. So you have a free 30-day period before July 6th to pick somebody. If you do not, you still have another 45 days after that because the office doesn't become vacant until the 6th. So you have 75 days when all is said and done to fill that seat.
And here's why I'm asking the question. So if nothing happens in that 75 days, then what does the statute allow? The reason I'm asking the question is because I heard a statement made, or perhaps people are thinking, well, we won't have leadership, we won't have whatever, and I don't think the state would allow fumbling around. There must be another provision.
No, if you get to July 6th, no replacement, and you get through the 45 days with no replacement, you have a vacant seat. You have no
Correct.
Supervisor.
Correct.
And the sooner, well, the election's going to be held at the next regularly scheduled election. So Ms. Berry's got a better idea when that would be than I do. But if you get that far, if you get 75 days and you don't have a replacement, and you're going to go to an election, you're going to have a vacant seat for the supervisor until that election occurs. Somebody is seated and under taking the oath.
And again, I don't think we're going to go that far, but I just want to know how does the township operate then? There would be 6 people, no supervisor.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's some provision.
There isn't such a.
But for meetings, for holding our meetings?
Well, for holding meetings, you're gonna vote to designate a chair as if he was on vacation.
Okay.
He's absent for the meeting.
Right.
But, to be fair, to be in a position that bad, you gave up 75 days of not being able to fill it. So, you're given every opportunity to avoid that possibility. But certainly with no supervisor, the meetings would be the least of your issue. You got day-to-day operations going on with nobody there to handle those, and it would be.
Again, I don't think we're going to reach.
Yeah.
I believe,
Yep.
quite firmly believe, we will reach some kind of decision before the 75 days.
The statute does
are
not
up.
help you out if you don't get somebody in 75 days. You got a vacant position, and you're going to be doing the best you can under the circumstances.
Thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think when it comes to Chesterfield, I think it's been at least 10 years that there was a vacancy on this board. And I believe Trustee Demink, and I believe there's another member in the audience here that were on that board when that occurred. You had a process you went through. I know there was oral boards, and then you elected, as a board, you selected a replacement. I know there was discussion, at the beginning of this discussion, the clerk volunteered her services and gave us 3 variables. I do agree with the concept. Well, first thing is I believe Trustee Joseph, I am support of the course of action you're proposing. I do, in a worst-case scenario, if it can't be resolved then, I do agree with this concept of fair, open, objective process. We are in a unique position now that 5 years ago we were not in. We have a entire department, H&R department here, with a full-time H&R person, support people, and a budget. Why are we not using these? This board enacted that entity. I personally believe that the H&R director and that entity do work for the board. I have tremendous faith that they can maintain the transparency, objectivity, and the process involved to check out candidates. If it gets to that, it should be there and should not be by us. This is my opinion. Your local public official or politician should not have anything to do with that. We should be out of that. We will be involved in it when the vote comes. And I'll leave it lie right there. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
May I invite the HR director? Mr. Duchesne, could you come?
Trustees, again.
Thank you. Is there a process that would be neutral that you have already in place that for applications to place applications into the system?
The present process we use is software that you can see on our website that's called Applicant Pro, which basically is pre-programmed to state what the qualifications are. It's publicly stated. Anybody can be directed to the website. When they apply through the website, it's set up to meet minimum qualifications, which frankly in this case are very easy because we'll simply take the statute and would post it. And our system would then allow, based on how the board wants to proceed, to include any information regarding times, dates, and openness. We usually leave those posted for 10 business days or 14 calendar days, at which time it's closed. Now that's on a typical hire of a employee. We then have the ability to either electronically let the appointing parties look at all of the applications that have come in, or we can physically transform those into writing and hand those to everybody in the board. So having been through that process a few times in other places about elected offices being vacant, that it would be the same process. We are the only non-union confidential department in the township, and it is our obligation based on what the requirements are by the board to serve the board in any way you see fit in making your decision. So that would be what I would state to you if asked, would you do this or how would you do this? We'd simply create a notice which is virtually drafted because it's statutory in nature. It would be posted under the parameters that the board wants, and then that information would be transmitted to the board.
Thank you. How quickly, if we chose to do follow that, how quickly could you put something out?
Based on your discussion right now, it would be posted tomorrow.
I would recommend, I'm sorry, I would recommend, and I try to stay out of this as much as possible, that we do something like that. Now, I think the question may come, who collects those applications? Basically, it's a letter of interest, correct? And that if it goes through this model or the clerk's office. And Clerk Berry, you have some comments.
And of course, we'll do whatever is the board dictates, but I would submit a couple of things for consideration. One, with regards to a current elected official managing this process, the clerk's office staff are not elected. They do their jobs and they do the administrative work of the clerk's office without prejudice or without any type of preference. They're trained to do that. We handle all of the nominating petitions. We handle all of the candidate issues and election-related issues, again, without passion or prejudice, right? And that is how we do things. So I don't have any concern about that, and it would be clerk's department staff that would be accepting those. We would be interested in utilizing perhaps Applicant Pro or some other type of electronic servicing method for that. We also can do that within our software as well, as far as Laserfish goes. And it would also maintain a records management component as well. As far as the confidentiality, obviously all of the submissions are going to be completely public. There is nothing confidential about them. There shouldn't be. Just as any candidate for office, anything they submit is complete public record. That's kind of part of what's involved. So I don't have a concern there. And although I do have some concern, I don't know of any other human resource manager or department that's ever handled this issue. It's always found in the clerk's office because of the nature of what we do. I would submit that perhaps there may be some concern. I don't have it, but perhaps a member of the public may have a concern about a direct report handling their potential new bosses' applications. So I think there's probably a bit of a conflict of interest there. Again, I don't believe so, but there may be some who may think so, and I know that Steve Duchesne is a completely honorable individual. That would not be an issue at all. I just am concerned that public perception may be that having a direct report handle their potential supervisors' replacement could be an issue. Again, I do not have that concern myself, just there maybe. But as far as the clerk's office staff goes, I have absolutely no concerns about any of our staff members managing this particular task. Thanks.
Treasurer Elliott.
I'm not concerned over this part of the process. Applicant Pro, if I'm understanding, you did say that it is something that if somebody is on this side of the computer and they put in their letter of intent, they push the send button, you have the ability for that to go to all 6 of the board members, correct? And that'll go automatically to them, and there's really no touching by anybody. Is that how it works? That's how I thought it works. Or help clarify that.
Well, give access like we do to the hiring department. So we will open it up, give it to the hiring department, whoever the board would designate, or everybody, if that's what the board chooses, and they could go in and look at the applications. The one thing I would caution is we would actually have an application that would be filled out by a party that goes from their full name, address, data that required, and that we limit the fields because it's like I said, there's a very simple process in this case. But then you could go in and access it electronically like we do right now with the hiring process for the departments. Or if you wanted it printed off, we'd simply hand it to it. And again, I stress that we are recommended for appointment and appointed by the board, in my case, to report to the board. So if there's any concerns or question about what we would do in this case, remember, we're not making the decision, and we're not going to lose one under the desk. It's electronically filed, and it's there, and everybody can have access to it, or we'll make hard copies if some members preference that.
So, and can you change the dates, or is it always Applicant Pro is just a 10-day open standard? You could do that.
You can make whatever the board's pleasure is. If you want to just use that as the receptacle, and then who has access to it, certainly you can make that designated to an office or persons reviewing, or however you want to set it up.
Thank you. So if I understand, one option is to open up application process for 10 days starting tomorrow, which would mean that you would have 10 days and which would end on June 4th. Is that correct? 10 days, is I believe, and somebody can correct me. That would be because we are going into Memorial Day weekend, right? Some people may have we give them a little bit of time next week to be able to do the application process through June 4th, and that would be enough, ample time if the applications are, if we are able as the board members to see them up until midnight on June 4th, we have June 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, if you want to make a, you know, make a motion at the June 8th meeting.
You could set it up 5 days. I want to be clear that that's our usual practice for hiring full-time professional positions. But again, we're just an instrument of the board, and how you'd like to proceed is up to you, whether the dates would be more advantageous in a different manner. And we're not using any assessments, we're not using any tests or anything like that. So it's just strictly collecting and handing.
Trustee Joseph.
I don't think Trustee Demink has had an opportunity in round one, and
Okay, Trustee Demink.
Okay, hearing all this, what my suggestion would be, open it up for applications for 5 business days. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. It goes to Mr. Duchesne, he forwards it to us, then we make our decisions from what's in there. 5 business days. And then, but it goes to Mr. Duchesne, and then Mr. Duchesne sends it to the 6 of us, and then we look at it, and then we vet it that way. Short and sweet. Let's get it done and over with. That's where I'm thinking. 5 business days.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I appreciate Treasurer Elliott and Trustee Demink, your comments on that. I think you can start to see the difficulty of agreeing on a process and the slippery slope, which is the one that Trustee Vosberg was asking Attorney Siebert about, which is, in essence, we have 75 days between the 30 days and the 45 post-resignation to figure it out as a board, but the decision rests with the board on every element, including the process. Trustee Demink, in talking with you, I think we heard that the clerk's office tonight is in a better position to receive these applications, and the HR department, who Treasurer Elliott pointed out, has actual software to qualify candidates, right? And then the question becomes, is this a process where we are hiring candidates and looking, if we're going to go out and look, and our process is to go out and look and take all applicants, I don't think you can do that in 5 days. But I'm not proposing that we do it in 5 days or 10 days or 20 days. What I would like to do, what I will do, and then the board can decide, I think we can do 2 things at once. If there are other members of the board that would like to look at resumes from other candidates and so forth, they can do whatever they want. I'm just simply saying to the board, my intention is I'm going to bring an agenda item forward at the next board meeting, and I'd ask you to help me with it, but I'll make a presentation that lays out this candidate's resume and the basis for my support and the argument that says why we need it, and moreover, why we need it while the supervisor is still here. Because the candidate that I'm interested in has universal appeal on this board, he has the respect of this supervisor, and I believe would be able to be in the best position to carry us through what will be our fate if we don't get our act together, which will be a captainless ship until August of 2022. And I think our best shot is to take a known entity, and if that individual doesn't step up, I'm going to hold you to yours and ask that you do, because I feel that strongly that in the crisis that we're in, we need to have a strong leader that knows this community very well, that knows the employees very well, that knows the union stewards knows the pitfalls, knows the danger, and more importantly, can bring us together. It's somebody that I think everybody on this board has had an independent conversation with since this resignation was announced. And maybe it's not your first, but it is our best shot at coming together and getting to where this decision, as Trustee Anderson points out, where it belongs and that is the most open, fair, honest, transparent, which is the election, the special election that'll take place with the gubernatorial. But when you start to see already on day one, the clerk making strong, talking about nobody in my department is answering to anybody, and they're fair and honest, we got the building blocks for some problems. I thought HR Director Duchesne responded very appropriately and said, you know, that's ditto for our department. But I don't have the ability to be here and see all and hear all of the things. Again, the most fair to me is the candidate that we all know. I'll be happy to bring it forward, and I ask you to work on it with me, and we'll make a full presentation to the board. And if that resume, if that commitment, if that skill set, if that experience set is not to the liking of this board, then you can do what you want, and I'll roll along with a 10-day application, a 30-day application, whatever you want to do. But I believe the candidate I'm going to bring to you on our next meeting will have the support of this board, and it'll provide us with the certainty that the township needs in the stewardship from the existing supervisor, who clearly knew a little bit more than I did when I first started talking tonight, and we could take advantage of his time here to help that individual make the transition. I will bring it forward independent of whatever we decide, and if there's a collateral sort of movement, I'm respectful of that, but I'm going to bring the agenda item forward. I'd like your support, and then we can see where we're at from there. We lose nothing. We'll have 2 weeks, and that'll give us plenty of time for Plan B, and if people want to work on Plan A in the meantime, you can do that too.
Thank you.
The statute affords us that.
Any comments from the public?
John Speaker. The one thing that I didn't hear tonight in regards to this board moving forward with picking a replacement for Supervisor Acciavatti is, where does the will of the people come in all this? You know, my last recollection, going back to November's election, there were two candidates on that ballot. We had Mark Palomino and we had Danny Acciavatti on that ballot. Mr. Palomino brought in almost 11,000 votes in this township. In a regular election, that would have been a win. Nowhere did I hear anything about the will of the people. I think we need to focus in on what the will of the people. And the will of the people would be, and I think the right thing to do would be, Mr. Palomino came in second with the most amount of votes, and Mr. Palomino should take that spot. That's my personal opinion. And again, I'm a firm believer of the will of the people to decide, you know, who's going to lead or, you know, run this township. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
There we go. Joe Kadich, 32825 Sutton Road. I've got a couple of concerns here, the way this thing is going. Everybody's talking about candidates, advertising for candidates. Number one, I don't know if anybody knows it, but there's no way in this whole township that you can get the advertising out that you're looking for candidates that everybody knows about it. The Voice doesn't have that much circulation. You don't get that much reading on your homepage. How are you going to do that so that everybody has a chance out there if you're going to look for everybody outside? You've got to come up with a way to advertise and say, we're looking for candidates. And not just in the Voice or in the back page of some newspaper or something. You've got to do it legitimately. Either send a letter out to everybody saying we're opening this up, like Dan put out a letter saying I'm not retiring, but I'm moving. The whole township should know that this is coming available. Number two, when you're looking for candidates, you ought to know what's they're gonna be up against and what they need to do in this township. And put that together as, so if the HR department is looking for candidates, these are the kind of people we need, because these are the problems, or these are the hardships we've got in this township, and we need somebody that's gonna be able to handle this. Everybody's mentioned about, you know, we've got some problems. Paul mentioned we should wait for the Platt Moran report. You can get that report on your own. All you gotta do is sit down with Vicki, and she'll tell you what the finances are in this, and how we're going with the budget right now. You should have that in your mind when you're going into this. If you want a candidate that's gonna handle this, you've got to know the candidate, you got to know what you want to the candidate's got to know what he's going to get into. The other thing I would recommend is that when all of these candidates, whoever it comes down to, that you come to the board for a decision, that it's unanimous. There's only going to be 6 of you. And the way it's typically gone in the past 4 years, 5 years, prior to this it was 4 and 3, now it's 4 and 2 it's going to be. So whoever's going to pick this, it shouldn't be up to 4 of you to say this is the way it's going to be. You should all come to an agreement, or you don't have an agreement. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Trustee, we're going to go one more up here, then I'll bring it back up.
Mike Wharton, 50393 Bauer. So in regards to this decision process, I think it's vitally important that you keep in motion that this is the public forum, and everyone does have that right to submit themselves and to consider their abilities, as well as through the regular nomination process in which you're proposing. And I would also agree with the previous speaker that it should be a unanimous decision. This is a very unusual and unorthodox decision for leadership within the township. As the attorney has stated, and you have all discussed this, there's no precedence for this, either in this township or relatively anywhere else within the state government process. So it cannot just simply be a regular board motion. It has to be something that's representative of the entire democratic process within the township. And I'm a little troubled on the notion that someone can get sort of preferential treatment from a nomination of a board member, I'm sorry. I think should be someone from the direct citizenry of the township being able to participate in this and not receive any preferential treatment, but rather prove that they are the best person for this position and be decided unanimously by the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Paul Lafata, 48055 Mallard. One of the biggest decisions the board's going to have to make is whether they want to hire somebody that can manage the township business or somebody that wants to be a politician. Doesn't seem like somebody that's all politician works so well. Doesn't seem like somebody that's all business works so well. But with the economic standings right now of the township, you need to consider that don't put a pure politician in place.
Any further comments from the public? Push it until it turns right. There you go.
Right there. Michelle Wilson, Merriweather, 52860 Muirfield Drive. I would just like to state that for whomever is considered, for whatever pool you pull from and whatever direction, I would hope that all individuals are considered. That means that I see individuals being considered that look like me in terms of color and also are gendered like me, like a woman. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Any further discussion from the board? Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. Just kind of tying what we've talked about, just a suggestion here, Trustee Demink. At the June 8th meeting, Trustee Joseph's going to make a proposal. If that fails, would you entertain, based on that, predicated on that, would you make a motion at that time, if the position was not filled, then a 5 or 10 day window for applications to be submitted to the H&R department to fill the position? I don't know if you follow me on it.
No, run that by me again, please.
Okay. Trustee Joseph is going to have a candidate. If that fails in our next meeting, if we fail to select that person at that time, would you entertain making a proposal? I'll second it, that then for the position of supervisor, applications would be submitted within 5 or 10 days to the H&R department for our future consideration.
Treasurer Elliott.
I appreciate this dialogue, and I appreciate the questions. I think if the process that you're suggesting, I had wrote down this suggestion. Allow the letter of intent to be placed through applicant pro so that we get those, immediately, right, through that system. And I can respect the 5 business days, right? I understand that. 10 business days is what we ran through. That would mean that that process would be finished June 1st. That would give you, I realize that the process is a little bit fast, but of course, we're trying to make sure that we have time to consider. That gives you a week to review all the letters of intent, and then if you choose to make an agenda, put something on the agenda, that still gives you time to do that by June 8th. Is that, because what you're proposing, I feel like that would push the process down a little bit further, and so it's just a suggestion, just a thought before he agreed to it, just to be respectful of thoughts.
Okay, I was looking at probably there'd be a proposal on the 8th of June for the position. If that failed, then we would go for the 5 days and revisit and fill the position on the 22nd of June. That was my thoughts on it. If we weren't able to appoint the person that Trustee Joseph's talking about, then we would have 5 days from then posted to accept applications into the HR department, and we'd act on June 22nd, the following meeting, that we could have a person. That's what I was intending.
Mr. I'm sorry, Trustee Demink, did you?
It doesn't really matter to me. I mean, Dave can make his pitch one way, and I know who you're talking about, so, but you can make your pitch, and then if you get the vote, I'm just looking at dates there, just so everybody knows what I'm looking at. You can make your pitch and make your motion, and then I guess it'll see how it goes, but if we still get, let's say, people submit apps for the next 5 days, you can take a look at them. I mean, we don't have to look at them. I mean, if you know who your candidate is, it still throws some other things in there, but, you're welcome, and I have no problem with you recommending who I think you're going to recommend.
So just to expound on that, if I could, there were a couple of comments made from the audience which I'd like to address, and one was the concept of the will of the people. And when the voters went to the polls in November and they selected a candidate, the candidate that they selected was not done in concert with the concept of who would be the second runner-up. So the only place I've ever heard that is in the Miss America pageant, where they say if the pageant winner can't fulfill their duties, then the second runner-up will take. But the statute doesn't call for that. The statute doesn't call for that. In fact, what we are doing is the will of the people, because the will of the people lays out a legal precedent. What you're describing and what the speakers are describing is an opinion. And if you want to see what the opinions look like on social media, just put something out there about a fruit market in the township, and you'll have a lot of opinions. So this issue is unprecedented, but it wasn't completely, never conceived as an option. And what we heard from our attorney, and then we also heard from our clerk in terms of the three options, is the will of the people. That is statute. And the statute says when you get into a situation like this, you can't divine the intent from the voters in November who said, if somehow Mr. Acciavatti accepts another position, we'll go to Mr. Palomino. People did not vote with that in mind. Now, I don't know if they captured the statute in terms of, I don't know what they were contemplating, but I know that nobody voted with the idea that there would be a second runner-up, and if the winner couldn't. So I don't think that it violates the will of the people to go and follow the will of the people, which is the statute that governs this. Secondly, the idea of being able to get a full complement of all individuals who may be interested in even a 10-day, 5-day is difficult, and I realize that we're in unprecedented positions, and I appreciate the suggestion. There's nothing in my proposal that disallows the ability for any member of this board to seek applicants. So if the clerk wanted to put out a notice that the clerk, would like to see applicants, and then internally they're centralized through the HR department and they're made available to the board. But looking at the calendar, it's going to be a very difficult process with the Memorial Day holiday to get an agenda item in that bases a decision on whatever those applicant pools are. And I think at best, if the motion I bring forward fails, we would probably be obligated at that point to look more closely at whatever applicant pool anybody else wants to look at. Again, the inherent problems I have with the applicant pro is that there are a number of variables that you would put in to qualify a candidate or disqualify a candidate. And so the beauty of the software in terms of hiring, and I don't know if you've gone through this personally, but I know, Mr. Acciavatti, you've looked at, you get a number of candidates and you start to clarify based on education level or experience level. And in this case, what I'm hearing most of the board say is, we welcome all comers, and then we'll decide what is most of value. So the software in Applicant Pro doesn't help us. It is meant to effectively sort of trim the applicant pool. And in this case, I'm hearing what you want is all candidates. The comment and the speaker who said, in essence, the idea was to open it up to all individuals, male, female, and so forth. As I said in the reference, slightly modified for our times, when Schembechler said a Michigan man, I'm saying a Chesterfield man or woman. So I certainly think if there's an applicant pool and people want to go to that process, that's perfectly fine. And I have no objections, and I welcome that. My candidate, and the reason I'm bringing this candidate forward, is because I will make the presentation on the 8th as to why this candidate is uniquely positioned. And I'll attempt to address in my presentation a number of concerns that were raised tonight, like what happens if we don't come to what I think some speakers have presented, which is a unanimous position. I think it would be a very strong message to send that the board is unified in their decision to bring a candidate forward to lead the day-to-day operations. It's not just appointing a temporary chair at a meeting. It's what happens, Monday through Friday with the who runs day-to-day operations. And then lastly, we do have tremendous disagreements. And in terms of the visions and the things and the legacies and so forth, I value the impact of having a candidate potentially on board and allowed to shadow the supervisor, to be a part of understanding what that supervisor's role is, because there are a number of things that I wholeheartedly agree with. There isn't one project that we have out there where I say this is a bad idea. The question is, how do we navigate it moving forward? And those we could benefit by having the supervisor. And I'll make the points in the presentation, and there's nothing in the presentation that stops any other board member from doing anything that they want to do. But officially, we don't have a process that we've agreed upon yet. If you get to a candidate proposal pitch and the board sees it differently, I'll be all ears to see what the plan is after that. But on June 8th, I'm going to bring an agenda item forward, and Trustee Demink, I'd like to collaborate with you and ask for your help in that presentation.
Clerk Barry, yes.
I've got no problem doing that, Trustee Joseph. I mean, if they decide we want to take applications, I'll look at them. I'll look at applications too, in all fairness to everyone. I have no problem doing that, and I'll look at the candidate who I think I know you're talking about.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I actually agree with Trustee Joseph's assessment and what he said. I have no problem, and I don't think it harms us to wait until after that date to get a process put together. I'd also like to address, I don't normally do this, but there was an audience member who made actually a very, very good point that, again, I don't think this board is considering, and quite frankly, I was negligent in mentioning it, but it's a very good point. How do you notify people? You notify people with an official public notice that comes from the clerk's office, not the HR department. Okay. We do that for elections. We do that for bid openings. We do that for a number of things. When we need an official notification of the public, that is issued by the clerk's office in usually on our website, as well as a publication of mass distribution. So that would be The Voice, that would be the Macomb Daily, and I would feel comfortable that an official notification of the public would have to take place that way. We don't normally send letters to everybody for things like that, but I understand the concept, and that concept and the point is very well taken and is correct. There needs to be an official notification of the public, in my mind, for me to be comfortable if, in fact, we are going to go that route, and it takes time to do that. So I think that in order for this to be done right, I don't think there's a reason for us to rush into making a decision on this today. I agree with Trustee Joseph on that we have time, and Attorney Siebert said we have 75 days. So we have ample time to get the process down, address all of those issues, and figure out how we're going to proceed. And if, in fact, there is an applicant or a candidate or a motion brought forward at our next board meeting, it could make, that passes with 4 votes, that could make that entire process moot, if that's the case. So knowing that that is Trustee Joseph's intention and that we will be taking a vote to that effect, I don't see where we are in any hurry to come to a decision today on procedures that may in fact be moot anyway. I would be comfortable entertaining the agenda item at our next meeting that Trustee Joseph has said he's going to bring forward. And then in the event of a failure in that case, that gives us, again, 2 weeks to come up with an agreed upon process for filling this vacancy. But I think that the conversation tonight was very productive, and I think that it was meaningful. So it did have a good place tonight, and so I think I'm actually going to agree with Trustee Joseph on his points tonight.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to close discussion?
Motion to close discussion.
Motion by Clerk Barry.
Support.
Support by Trustee Joseph to close discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. See all candidates at next meeting. Item 9 is the addendum. 9A.
Item 9A is to approve a request to adopt resolution number 2021-14, a resolution authorizing the purchase of real estate and authorizing the township supervisor to sign all necessary documents to effectuate such purchase.
Motion by Trustee Joseph.
Trustee Anderson,
Trustee
supported
Anderson.
by Joseph.
Motion by Anderson, support by Joseph. Discussion, this is required for the closing that will be taking place on Thursday. Trustee Vosper.
Thank you. I support this. I don't mean I support this motion, and I just want to, it's the purchase price is $50,000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Comments from, Trustee Joseph.
Oh, no, sir.
Oh, I saw a red light. Any questions from the public, or comments from the public? Motion by Trustee Anderson, support by Trustee Joseph to approve item 9A as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti?
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 10, public comments. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Good evening, Township Board, Chesterfield Township residents. My name is John Spica. Clerk Barry, it's good to see you back in the People's House. Supervisor Acciavatti, you didn't answer any of my questions that I asked 2 weeks ago. One, with the trash cart program, that's about a 69,000 plus loser. Two, I talked about Weber Park on the grant money, $265,000 that Township hasn't received yet. I'd like to know where is the residents' money. And three, Brandenburg. I expected a response from you. I got no response. I asked you tonight on a public question. You didn't respond to that either. I don't know where you get this feeling that you don't have to respond to the residents, but you do have to respond to the residents. When somebody comes up here, they expect a response. Mr. Kadich wrote something to the Bay Voice on, residents asking questions up here and not getting a response. Ms. Elliott, I asked you a response on the $60 reimbursement that you got. I would be embarrassed if I was you at $100,000 asking for $60 back from the residents. I appreciate Supervisor Acciavatti. And I did not appreciate Supervisor Acciavatti when I was watching the sidewalk meeting where you called out another board member, Trustee Joseph. You called him a liar. I would expect you to apologize to Trustee Joseph. You, Supervisor Acciavatti, we have many differences, mainly the vision of this township. I mean, you spend money like a drunken sailor. You don't follow through on projects like Weber Park. You haven't gotten the grant money that you promised the residents that we were going to get. You have grown government in Chesterfield by hiring friends and friends of friends. And, I've been told that you have 3 assistants in your office on the backs of the residents. I mean, we're running a negative deficit. And I'm glad, it's finally coming to an end with your resignation. Instead of, I think the issue is you let your ego get ahead of you, and instead of listening to the residents, you let your ego guide you. So my recommendation would be with your next endeavor that you listen more than you speak. And like I said, if you behave this way at the county level, you won't make it to even run for Candace Miller's spot when I've been told she's going to retire in the next 3 years. Clerk Barry, you used the word liability tonight, and I like that. Liability, looking out for the residents in the township, but that word liability is thrown around when it's convenient for the board members to use. For example, the sidewalk program, it was used as a liability. Let's talk about liability at the township here. The sidewalks are a huge liability here at the township. The parking lot is a huge liability at the township. I haven't seen any repairs, and frankly, when you pull up to the township, what's the first thing you see? You see a crumbling wall. You see a parking lot that looks like we're on the moon, and a building in total disrepair. The seniors can't even sit on the picnic tables in the back without getting a splinter in their rear. It's an embarrassment. Mr. Acciavatti, you talk about the goals and your accomplishments in the last 4 years. I don't see those goals, and I don't see those accomplishments. Personally, I think it's an embarrassment in the last 4.5 years on the direction that you have led this township. That's my personal opinion. And Ms. Elliott, I would like to get a response from you on, that reimbursement of the $60. So, I mean, to some people, it's not a big deal, but when you're making that kind of money, it is a big deal. When Treasurer LaFata was in the office, I looked at the bill run. I never seen Treasurer LaFata turn anything in for expenditures like that. As a matter of fact, Treasurer LaFata bought food for the people that worked in the office, and he paid for it out of his own
10
pockets.
seconds.
That's it. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Paul Afata, 48005 Mallard. One of the things that I really want to comment on is we're going to do another water rate study. There's been 3 of them, and all 3 of them have really been upside down. I mean, really bad, not even close. The last one was done by Santec, cost $30,000, was in the SAW grant, and it wasn't even usable. So, it's like everything else. It's like a computer. What you put into it is what you get out of it. And when you put in that you're going to have 0 growth, and you are going to have shrinkage usage, and you're going to have increased cost, then that tells you that your water rates need to go up. But if you look at your budget from year to year, and you don't manage your budget, and you don't look at your operating costs, and you don't look at being efficient, you shouldn't be pushing that into the water rate schedule so that the residents have to bear the burden of it. Just look at the gas invoices from our credit card and see how many miles people drive every day, and it gets billed to sewer and water. When somebody drives that many miles a day, when the township's 5 miles from one end to the other, there's not very much value added done in between. There's another issue that I don't think I want to let go. At the last board meeting, I tried to correct an issue of a lot of mistakes on an agenda item. Not one number tied to anything, didn't tie to the budget, didn't tie to the amount left over, didn't tie to the amount in the budget. Not one of them. Tried to fix it, tried to resolve it, and I was told that residents don't get a second chance to talk on an agenda item. There is no board rule. It's an Acciavatti rule, and that needs to go away. If you're going to have rules enforced, the rules need to be enforced, and they need to be equal. And if one of the board members don't agree with you, you don't gavel them and call them names. You can't do that. You can't do that in your next role. It's not going to work. I just don't understand it. And then there's the rhetoric that you try to justify everything at the end, and you go on the Weber Paddle Park and the this and the Nature Center and everything else. And there's so many I's in there, I think you added another I to the end of Acciavatti. Anybody can spend tax dollars. Anybody can spend tax dollars. It's how wisely, how efficiently, and the value of the end product that you get that really counts. Not how many things you can point at and go, I. Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Hi, Linda Hartman. I live on Forbes in Chesterfield Township. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to clear up the budget item on the treasurer's report from our treasurer, Elliott. The township belongs to the Anchor Bay Chamber of Commerce, and we have a lot of events. And any person on this board is invited to our events. There is a cost associated with the events. The Treasurer's Department was asked to pay for that event. that Treasurer Elliott and the Deputy Treasurer attended. It came to the amount of $60. That is common for someone to pay for it at the event and then get reimbursed from the township for that, and that's the explanation for that bill run and why she's asking for a reimbursement of that. Also, I'd like to thank our Supervisor Acciavatti for his commitment to this township. He says that he puts his life into it, and it shows. He's done a good job, and look forward to someone new. I do like the proposition of Trustee Joseph putting forward someone who's committed, someone who's experienced, someone who shows leadership and knows what's going on. I was here in 2003 when, unfortunately, our clerk passed away, Clerk Connie Bowles. At that time, the board made the decision to appoint one of their own to replace that clerk, which became a trustee, was put in place as clerk. That was Kelly Jo Slomeric. In that process, there was an opening for a trustee position, and letters of interest were submitted for that trustee's position, which I submitted a letter, and I was appointed to the board as a trustee. But the following year, I had to run for that position to continue as a trustee, which I did, and I became a trustee. So I had 5 years as a trustee, where normally it's a 4-year position. Thank you.
Any further public comment?
All right, Mike Wharton, 50393 Bauer. Just wanted to say 3 things. Supervisor Acciavatti, thank you for all the things you have done over the last 4.5 years in the township. I'm certain you will do really well under Drain Commissioner Miller. I've looked up a lot of her history recently. I'm just in awe of how long she's been in office doing all these other things, and how she started off younger than I was as the Harrison Township Supervisor and did an incredible job. So much I actually worked a day at Harrison Fire Department for a clinical, and I saw things on the wall from her before I was even born, and I thought that was very incredible. And you're definitely going to have probably the best boss in probably the whole state, because I think everyone has realized the reputation she has garnered, being perhaps the only person in regional or state politics that people practically get on their knees and beg for her to run for governor. Aside from that, though, I do hope that the process will remain open and transparent to the public, continuously updated. I'm certain everyone in the township would like to know who their next supervisor will be, and if they wish to participate in such a competitive selection process, I think that they should be allowed, and more importantly, have full awareness of it. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, it's more or less just a fun nitpick, but Trustee Joseph, you had said that you had never heard of the second place individual getting a sort of a consolation and everything like that. But that's actually built into the Constitution of the United States and the founding of the Republic. For the first 4 elections before the 12th Amendment, we actually had the second place recipient of the Electoral College became the vice president. And yeah, that was in the elections of 1788 and 89, 1792, 1796, and 1800. It was changed after the contentious election of 1800. But aside from that, that was just a little nitpick we had tonight. Thank you, and you guys have a good night.
Any further public comment? Bring it up to the board, Trustee Demink.
Hope everyone has a safe Memorial Day weekend. There's a lot of discussion up here tonight. The hot topic is going to be who's going to replace Supervisor Acciavatti. I guess we will see. Trustee Joseph has some ideas. I have some ideas. Other board members have ideas. So welcome Trustee Joseph's presentation in 2 weeks. And that's about all I have. It's a late night, so I'm cutting it short.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. It was mentioned at the opening of our meeting that the Historical Society is going to be open Saturday and Sunday, June 5 and 6 for the Voyager, and the timeline of various groups that, from time of the Voyagers until today, and regarding their military encampments. If anyone would like to volunteer to help those days, we would love to have additional help. You can respond by sending an email to chesterfieldhistory@yahoo.com, or you can call the township. There's on the website, there's a phone number for the Historical Society. This email is also listed on the website. You can please, anyone that would like to volunteer, be it for 2 hours or 2 days, we'd appreciate the assistance. Thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. Historical Society is very fortunate. I'm fortunate enough to be the liaison, and Trustee Vosberg is also the president. So she does a tremendous job of shepherding over the process, and the society is very fortunate for that. Tonight's meeting in its entirety has been interesting and illuminating, and I believe it will serve as a sort of benchmark for our township moving forward. I hope everyone has a safe and positive holiday. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
Well, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I appreciate Trustee Demink's comments, and again, the comments from the speakers with regard to all the things that are frustrating them. I understand what your position is. I would just simply say, if you come to the podium having, try to put this diplomatically, there have been a lot of very ugly encounters at the podium where accusations are made, and I understand the response by some of the board members to just simply take a pass on answering questions, and I think the belief is that it's gotcha, and so I will always try to answer questions when I can, but I have to acknowledge that if I felt under attack every time an individual went to the podium and they zeroed in on me and they focused in on all the things that were wrong with me, and then they said, well, I'm respectfully asking for your answer, I don't know that I would be gracious enough to give it. I'd like to think I could, but I don't know that I could. So I do appreciate the comments about you know, how the last board meeting ended, but again, if I'm being fair, I give it plenty good enough, and so once in a while when I get it, I don't carry a grudge. I just know that you know, there have been plenty of times and nights where I've went home and said I regret having said that, and you know, it is something that is I just think happens when you, as Supervisor Acciavatti explained in his response to my frustration with him. We're passionate people. Sometimes you can lose yourself, and it is critically important to try to maintain that. It doesn't always work out. The next few weeks are critical for us as a board, and I think people are potentially gearing up for ugly, and I'm not interested in that. The concept of legacy and what speaks for what is also not something that I'm going to really heavily challenge or debate, because a lot of the things that have been deliberated on by this board are things that I wholeheartedly agree with. Unfortunately, we have some disagreement on how we execute those things, and I'm hopeful that the candidate that we bring forward is somebody that I think has the experience and the working relationships with every member of this board. It's a very unique talent and skill to have. So for that reason, and the public service history and commitment to this township, which I'll elaborate on in the presentation in 2 weeks, makes this individual the best person for the moment. And Mr. Wharton, I wasn't trying to be flip with the second place runner-up comment. I know that elicited some reaction. And if you can truly recite election law from 1789, I'd like to change my presentation in 2 weeks and nominate you. You're the fastest Googler I've ever met, and the idea of that process bringing out, it was a declared process. So people knew when they went in that when they were voting, they were potentially voting for who would succeed the candidate that they voted for. That was common knowledge at that time. What we have different here is exactly the opposite. I don't think anybody went forward, maybe I'm wrong, voting for either candidate with the expectation that I'm going to vote this way because if Supervisor Acciavatti resigns, I want to have the safety of Mr. Palomino. So I don't know that it's fair to assert that that is representative of the will of the people. The people's interests are preserved in the current statute and the current regulations, which, lastly, I would like to say how appreciative I am of the debate and discussion that we had. There were at least 4 ideas, contingency plans. There were 3 paths and then hybrids of those paths, and they were all treated with respect, and everybody was heard. And Supervisor Acciavatti, I know your commitment to the township and recognizing that it might not be the most appropriate to weigh in, even though you have ideas about it, showed incredible restraint. And I apologize for the initial request because there is some clear value to your continuing on. And you were clearly more knowledgeable and had done your homework on this issue. And I owe you an apology, and I have zero problem giving it. It was a little bit too premature to ask for that early resignation. I was operating from a different timeline. And again, I think this strengthens us as a board and as a community. And in terms of open, fair, and transparent, everything that I bring to you in 2 weeks will be what I hope to capture as the reason we should move forward with the candidate that I'm going to bring to you. Not unknown to any of us, but in terms of the answers and the questions that we heard from the community tonight about why this individual makes the best sense, I will try my best to capture. And we will still have, at that point, a considerable time before we get to that 75-day total timeline to find something. The thought of being a captainless ship until August of 2022 is cause for a complete recall of all of us. I can't imagine we would ever let it get that far, and I'm confident that we won't. And so I'll bring forward my best presentation in 2 weeks, and we'll go from there. But thank you all for the debate and discussion tonight.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I know the time is getting late and I don't want to belabor it, but I would be remiss if I did not mention my absence at the last board meeting. Myself and Deputy Clerk Nyza were in attendance at the International Institute of Municipal Clerks conference. It was the first conference in person that many of us had seen as professionals in the field in over a year, and it was very, very beneficial for us to be there. And there's much information that I would like to share with you that we gathered from that. But again, because of the time, I just simply would like to say that one of the most heartening things that I encountered, and I believe something that this entire community can be very, very proud of. Ever since I've been here, I've kind of had this mantra with my staff that we will aspire to be the gold standard in the clerking business, if you will. That our service delivery to our residents, to the public, will be exemplary, and our internal operations will be based on best practices and will in fact be considered the gold standard. And I'm very happy to report to you that in an international environment where we had clerks from all over North America, Canada, the United States, as far away as Alaska, that were in Grand Rapids with us a couple of weeks ago, we were in fact recognized by several of them from across the country as having some of the best practices and the best operations for a clerk's office. We are responsible for elections, and we are responsible for records management. And in particular, clerks were approaching me from all over the country that they had heard through vendors and various other sources that Chesterfield Township, Michigan had some of the very best practices and most cutting-edge ideas and operations in the area of records management. And our records coordinator here is Cindy Greenia in our office, and she heads up much of that. We work in concert together to implement those things, and then we come to the board, and the board has been very generous in allowing us the resources to enact those things. And so I'd like to thank my board members for that, and convey to everyone that we do share in this together, and we did receive that recognition. And again, it is for Chesterfield Township. It's not for me or for any particular person, but I did want to recognize my entire staff, but in particular, Records Coordinator Cindy Greenia. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. First off, I'd like to highlight the fact that and congratulate Director Sonnenberg on the fantastic job you did on obtaining a flag at Brandenburg Park. Very exciting stuff, and it's beautiful. And get out and see Brandenburg Park. And also would like to acknowledge the DPW department for their proactive work on the New Haven Road water main project. That was really impressive that you were thinking outside of the box during these times. So I want to really acknowledge that. Thank you very much. When I called up the Human Resources Director and asked about the Application Pro software, it is not to, I'm the type of person that looks for solutions and a way for us to work together, find a solution and a way to get through this process as simple and as professional as possible. It in no way reflects anything on either the HR department or the clerk's department or any employee here. I have the full faith in these employees who I've been working with on a regular basis, day to day, and they do work hard. They're very committed, and they've done a great job during the time when there is going to be some bumps along the road as we transfer and go through this process. I believe that the question came up tonight about, what would we do? And the thought that went through my head is we will rely on the solid employees that are here at the township. And for those that are listening or here in the room, I want to thank you for your fantastic service. I also want to acknowledge that I have been politically attacked by one person over and over and over again. I'm not going to acknowledge those political attacks. Last meeting, it even involved my family, and this time it's just participation in a chamber event that was representing our township. And I am saddened to hear that there are some elected officials that don't try to represent the township outside. But that's their choice, and I respect that. But I felt like when it's one where our township is being highlighted in the projects, of course, we are going to go and make sure that we have representation. And I was glad to take somebody who deserves to go out and get out of her office, my deputy, with me, and we went out and we are a part of that. And she gets to see and be a part of something that she works so hard for every day. I also want to acknowledge Linda Hartman, thank you for clarifying that. Also, I want to thank you for your wisdom and your words in coming up to the podium and giving some feedback on this process. And that was my question during that, as I was asking somebody, has this process ever happened before and how was it handled? And I appreciate you giving us some insight there. And I think that we should consider some of what Mrs. Hartman has to say. And I believe that this board will work together and come up with a very good candidate, and I understand that. I also think that we should give consideration to some of the comments made this evening and be respectful to one another. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a safe and happy Memorial Weekend. The date to remember those who sacrificed all to protect our freedoms. And thank you, Chesterfield Township. Motion to adjourn by Trustee Bosberg, support by Trustee Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by saying nay. We are adjourned at 10 p.m.